Hi, I'm Josh Murdoch,
And I'm Jenny Navarez. We're instructional designers here at Valencia.
and today we're going to talk about a very important area of Blackboard, the Grade Center. On today's agenda, we'll be talking about the Grade Center, some of the Grade Center basics, like where to find the Grade Center layout, the Grade Center icons. We'll demo creating a column. We'll demo creating a letter grade schema. We'll demo creating categories. We'll demo creating a weighted grade column, and also demo the needs grading and entering grades. And we'll show you what my grades would look like for students. Some general information about the Grade Center is its new name. It's the Grade Center now in Blackboard. Also, it's accessible through your control panel. As you notice, the needs grading area is where your assignments and tests that are ready to be graded can be found. This is also, you can filter by categories, assignments, or students. The full Grade Center is all your Grade Center columns, students, and everything else. So this is where you would find all your Grade Center columns, items, and be able to change things.
In fact, this would be similar to what we know as the gradebook in WebCT, right? The one place where everything is located.
That's correct. And then once you're inside, you can filter more if you'd like. But there's also a couple key things you'll see down below. Assignments and tests are what we call favorite smart views. These are default smart views for Blackboard, but you could create your own if you wanted to create one for discussions. If you wanted to create one for some labs you've created yourself, you could create these smart views to access these items that would only show those items in the Grade Center. It wouldn't show everything else.
Yeah, they're fabulous. I like to think of them as permanent filters because they're a great opportunity for us to just see only the columns we're interested in seeing or only the data that we're interested in seeing. I noticed that Josh mentioned a couple of categories, like just look at my assignments or at my labs. Please keep in mind that you can utilize this for so much more. You're able to custom write your own smart views to identify students that you're interested in keeping an eye on. For example, maybe I want to identify at-risk students in my course. This would be a great preventive feature and a monitoring feature that you can employ using Blackboard 9.
And also, just wanted to quickly note, is grading for discussions, blogs, journals, wikis are all done through the tool itself. So you would actually have to go into discussions. You wouldn't find those in the needs grading area.
That's actually a very important distinction to make. If you don't grade that discussion or that blog by going to the tool and actually grading that forum or that topic, then you'll never be able to see those grades, even zeros. You'll never be able to see anything in the full Grade Center. So as soon as you grade in one tool, that feeds into the other. So it's very important that you go to the tool and grade.
This is just a quick example of the Grade Center and a couple key features I wanted to point out when you're looking at the screen. This is your full Grade Center. One of the things you'll notice is the Create Column button. We'll demo this in a little bit, but this is how you create your own columns. So you wanted to create a column for a lab you did inside your class or some assignment that's outside of Blackboard, you could create your own column. You can also create calculated columns. So they could be weighted columns, total columns, average columns, and you can do a variety of different things, and we'll demo this in a few minutes. Also, you'll see a Manage button. This button is key for finding things like how to reorganize your Grade Center, how to create categories to use in your Grade Center, how to create those smart views that we showed you, and how to create the grade schemas. If you want to download your grade book from the Grade Center, you'd be easily able to click this Work Offline button and you can download this to Excel. Also, these frozen columns that are to the side, currently the last and first name are frozen. Now what happens with this, as I scroll over, these columns won't move. So the great thing about this is you'll always see the student's name next to the column you're looking at. So the frozen columns would stay, and you could see what they scored on their, say, lab number 2, that's way over to the right side. also the scroll bars. You're able to scroll over and down, up and down, and over, depending on the columns and rows. But those rows and columns will stay. You also see a last access date, and this is for this course only. The great thing about this is you can see when someone last accessed your course. So if you're looking for maybe a last day of accessing your course for withdrawal purposes, you could find the last access date here. I want to point out a couple key things. They're the icons you'll see throughout the Grade Center. One thing you might see is a user unavailable. Most likely you won't see this because we take out students that have withdrawn from your course or dropped your course. Also, columns not visible to users. This is when a column is hidden from students but available to instructors. So this would be signaling that column is not visible to students. Completed. This is a green check mark. That means the assignment has just been completed. This is one of the choices you have when deciding what to enter for a grade. It could be completed or incomplete. This would just show that the assignment was completed. Needs grading. This is when you know an assignment or a test is ready for you to be graded. It's waiting there for you. This should show an override. So if you put in a grade, say if a student did an assignment and then you had to enter in a grade because you gave them 5 extra points later on because you changed something and you needed to override that grade, it would mark this as an override over the grade you entered. Attempt in progress could mean that a student has saved a draft of an assignment or is currently working on a test. External grades you really don't need to worry about because we don't use them here at Valencia. The grades exempted for this user means it's not calculated in their final overall total grade. So if you exempt a student from taking a quiz for some reason because they completed some other type of assignment, then you would utilize this. Error. If you have an error issue in the Grade Center, you can always contact us for help or visit your Learning Technology Center. We can try to figure out what the error is. And not participating. Typically this is done when someone is not participating, say in a group project. So certain students will be in that group for that assignment and certain students won't. So those not participating won't calculate in their overall grade for that part of the assignment. And you can always access these if you're not sure what they are. Down at the bottom, you'll see icon legends. When you click on that, it will show you this exact same screen. Now we'll go into demoing creating a column. This is great for those that like to use the Grade Center to just actually using it as a grade book for their own course. So think about it as if you have a traditional face-to-face course and you need a way for your students to access their grades easily and keep track of their totals. You can use the Grade Center in Blackboard for them to always have access to up-to-date grades that you enter in.
So creating a column would allow me to basically set up one area where I'm typing in the grades for one particular activity in my class, correct?
That's correct. You can use this for, say, you have a lab in the class and you call it Lab 1. You can create your own column, and then you can also enter in comment information if needed. But just to remember that all items in Blackboard, such as assignments, discussions, tests, anything with a grade, actually automatically gets a column created for it in the Grade Center. But if it's something that you're grading, say, outside of the course that's not in Blackboard, and you need to create a Grade Center column, we'll show you how to do that. So now that we're in Blackboard, we'll go ahead and scroll down, and you'll see the control panel, and you'll see Grade Center. Now if I click on this, it'll expand and show the menu I showed you earlier, but you can also click right on the side here, the arrow will take you directly to your full Grade Center. Now this course is just a demo course, so I'll only have one student enrolled, but some of the things that I showed you before about the column staying frozen. As I'm scrolling across, notice the student's name is staying there. Now I'll go up to the button called Create Column. If I click on this, it'll take me some of the options of creating a new column. So this is the area that you would actually enter in a column name. So the column name could be Lab 3. Now, if you'd like for the Grade Center to display something shorter, say L3 for the lab, depending on how long a name the column name is you could have your Grade Center show something shorter, or you could leave this blank and it would show the same name as the column name.
Something that we'll show you in a few moments is that if you happen to leave that section alone and later you change your mind because you want to shorten up that name, you can always come back to the column and edit that information.
Now you can also add a description. So if you want to put in what this lab was, when it was supposed to be taking place, some of the information about why they would be seeing this kind of grade, you could put that information in here and the students would be able to click on the description area in their My Grades.
Great idea for this would be to perhaps attach a rubric or attach a sample copy of the lab itself.
As we scroll down, we see some of the other options available. One of the options you'll see is primary display. This is what students will see in their My Grades area. So as I click on this, score would be just basically points. Letter would show a letter grade based on a scheme. So if I had a scheme of 90 for an A, then it would show an A in this area. Text would allow you to enter anything into this. Percentage would show you exactly that, the percentage out of points. So if it was 9 out of 10, it would show 90%. And complete and incomplete. Once you put in any kind of points into there, it just checks it off as complete. So you could enter anything in, it would check it off as complete. For incomplete, it doesn't show anything. The secondary display is for your Grade Center only. So it's only for you to see. Your students will not see this secondary display. If you decide to choose percentage or letter grade, it would be only for your eyes only. So this is a great way to also create a column later on if you wanted to show a letter grade for an item instead of something else and you wanted to see actually the percentage they scored. The categories. This is where you'd be able to choose the categories it's associated with. Or in a few minutes, we'll show you how to create your own categories that you could associate, especially for those using weighted grades. This is a great idea. So I'm going to go ahead and I don't have any associated with it, so I'm going to leave it as no categories because I want to create a category later on called labs. And points possible. How many total points is this worth? You need to put something in here. So for now, I'm going to put 20 points. But if you don't want it to count anything towards your total, you could still put 0 points in here. And then if it was extra credit, you could add points onto this. Dates. One of the things you'll see here is a due date. So if you want this to show up in their to-dos, which is a great idea, if they have this due in class, it would also show up in their to-dos for Blackboard, you could put a date. But remember, each semester you would need to update these dates. And some of the final options that are already set as default, it includes this column in the Grade Center calculations, but for some reason, if this was just a practice quiz, you could put no, change the options to no. Also, show this column to students. If you know right now you don't want to show the students their grade for this column, you could click no for now, or you could change it later on if you'd like. Also, show statistics. This would just show some basic statistics for other students on how the class did as an average or a medium for this particular column. Default is set at no. If you'd like to change that, you just need to click yes instead. And then you'd click submit, and it would create your new column. Now, one thing to note is new columns created will be all the way at the end of your Grade Center. So in a few minutes, we'll show you how to move those around if you need to reorder things. So right now, I'm going to show you an example syllabus. So this is my letter grading scheme for my course. So for A, you'd have 90 to 100%, a B 80 to 89%, and so on. So the great thing about this is now we can create, based on this, something that will automatically create a letter grade based on these percentage ranges. So say for a final total column, if you wanted to show a percentage, actually show the letter grade to them instead of percentage, you could choose the letter as your schema for that column. So under the Manage area, you'll see a list of different items. And one of the things you'll see is the grading schemas. I'm going to go ahead and click on those. And this will give me the option to either create a new grading schema or edit an existing one. I'm just going to go ahead and edit an existing one that I have in here. You can click the drop down and click Edit. You could change the name if you'd like, or just leave it as a letter grade, whatever the best way. If you're using multiple schemas, I would suggest naming them more than just letter. I would name them something else afterwards to be able to easily identify those. Now here is where you see the letter scheming map and choosing what's between what. Now as you notice, I've already created most of these. The 90% to 100% equals an A. And one of the things you need to also do, if you enter a letter grade in actually instead of a percentage or a points, then you'll need to go ahead and calculate what they'll be worth. So if I enter an A in instead of entering 90% in, if I enter an A, it would actually calculate in the total as 95% of those points. Now one of the things you'll notice on the side here is as we're looking at this, you'll see different rows. Now I can insert new rows if I want to have different levels, say A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus. Also, one of the things you'll notice here is for C, I still have a C minus. Well, I don't use that in my letter grade schema, so I can go ahead and delete that row. Now, as I notice, it deleted that row, but I'll need to update this. I'll need to update my letter scored between. So I'm going to update that to 70. And then it would be less than 80. So now I have my letter grade schema created. And then you just click Submit. Now another example would be in your syllabus if you're using weighted final grades. Now this example shows that I have 5 quizzes and they're worth an overall of 50% of my final grade. I have 10 different discussions worth 25% of my final grade, 5 labs worth 15%, and a final worth 10%. And then I also noted that I dropped the lowest quiz grade. So overall this is 100% of the grade based on these percentages in the different categories. Now, I create a category for the weighted columns based on their names. Some of them might be already created, like discussions, where labs I might need to create this category. Also, these are the percentages I'll use for the weighted columns for each category. So I already have my percentages displayed. And the great thing about this is things like finals, that would be only one column actually in the grade center, is that single items don't need to create a category. So you don't need to create an extra category called finals if that's the only thing that would be in that category. So now I'll go into demoing weighted columns, how to create one, and then some of the options available. Remember, a total column is automatically created based on total points for the course, so you really don't need to create a total column unless you're doing something a little different from the normal, but there is one already created based on Blackboard. Also, another tip is best to create use categories before creating your weighted columns. So it might be a great idea to create those categories before you actually created those weighted columns. So as we go in, I'm going to demo how to create the categories and then also demo how to do the calculated column. So for under the Manage feature, I would go to Categories, click on Categories, and I would be able to add or create any new categories. One of the things I'll also notice is what already falls under certain categories. So I see there's a sample test that falls under the test category, and assignments already has a sample assignment. I'm going to create a new category called labs. The easiest thing about it is you click create categories, you type in what it's called, and click submit, and you are finished. Now notice the only ones that you can either edit or delete are the ones that are actually created by you, such as other and labs and things like that. You're not able to delete the assignments, blogs, discussions, those created automatically by Blackboard. Now if I go back into Blackboard, the Grade Center, I'll notice the create calculated columns. Now this, I'm going to create a weighted column. Now I'm going to go into here and create it based on what we talked about before. Now I'm going to call this final grade. And you could put in a description the percentages used for the final grade so they know what it's based out on. The primary display is usually set as percentages for the display, but a great thing for you might be to also put it in letter so you can easily add your have a letter grade shown for you when you enter your grades into Atlas. Now this is where I would actually start selecting the columns. Now one of the things we talked about was selecting a single column. Up here, up the top is where you see all your single columns. Now one of the things I can do is I see that final column. That's the only thing in that it's worth 10%. The rest have multiple columns associated. So I'm going to click the finals and click this arrow to move it over. I'll enter the percentage as 10%, and I'll be able to move on to the next one. As you notice at the bottom here, it starts adding up your total as we add them. It needs to equal 100% to move on. One of the other areas we talked about was labs. I click labs, I click the arrow to move them over, and I can click what the percentage is for those labs.
Hey Josh, what happens if I traditionally drop the lowest grade or the lowest lab in this session?
So if I dropped one of the lowest labs, I could easily go down here and it says drop lowest grade. I could click in 1 if I dropped one of the lowest grades, or I could click in multiple, so depending on what you want to drop.
Okay.
Now, one of the things is don't get confused and drop the highest grade instead. So watch out for the two different columns, which one you're selecting. As I move over things, I'm going to go ahead and move over assignments as worth 50% of my grade. And then the last one is discussions, and I'll go ahead and move this over so it shows 25% of my grade. And this is a simple way to create total columns. Now, after you create these, one of the things you'll notice at the bottom is you calculate as running total. This is a great way for your students to see their actual grade at that current time. So if you haven't graded certain items later on that are maybe worth more in the course, they'll actually see what the grade is at that moment until you have graded those other items. One of the keys is for an item that is missing, if you have something that hasn't been submitted, the students need to have a 0 in there. If you do not enter a 0, it won't calculate it as a running total. It only shows things in the running total that have been already graded. So that's important to remember.
So if I use calculated columns and I chose to use it as a running total, I need to make sure I type in those zeros when the deadlines come up, correct?
That's correct. Keep those up to date. And similar options as we've seen in the last section. And I can click submit to go ahead and create this column. So now I'm going to go into, and now you've created columns, you have different columns available, you want to reorder them for how students want to see them. So I'm going to demo organizing your grade center. Now one of the things you can do is you can move around columns in your grade center to be in what order you would like them to be in. So students will see them as in what order you have them in. So you might want to lump certain things together or put them in a timeline order. you decide how you want to organize them. Also, you can change your categories from multiple columns in a couple simple clicks. So instead of changing them one by one going into the edit options, you can go into this organization part and be able to change them. And it's a great place to also spot check point totals and see what columns are hidden in the Grade Center. This can be found under Manage. So if I click Manage, I'll see Column Organization. As I scroll down, you'll see those columns that we talked about that are frozen, other columns that are available here are shown, and then I see those that are actually my columns that I've either created or Blackboard has created for me. Now you notice my labs, lab 1, 2, and then way down here at the bottom is 3. Now if I want to move those to get them together, I would move over to the side here, and you'll notice that you'll see a 4-way arrow. This means that you can move things around. So I'm going to go ahead and move this up to the top here. Now also under my labs, I'll notice that it says no category. So under that, if I want to change that from being no category to that labs category, the easiest way to do that is to click the ones that I want to change, scroll all the way down, go under change category, and I can easily click on labs. And then when I'm finished, I would click submit. Now before I do that, I want to show you some of the other options, such as due date. You'll see that. It's an easy way to spot check your due dates for assignments that are in the Grade Center. Also, points possible. Some reason something's coming off, you can easily check and make sure all your points are correct for each of those areas. I'm going to go ahead and go submit.
It's very important not to forget the submit button. You may make a lot of changes in that screen. Without hitting submit, none of those changes are saved.
Now as you notice, I'll go over here to my labs, and now they're together. They're right in a row, lab 1, 2, and 3. So this is one of the options. Now, we'll talk about column options. Now, for each column, there's a drop-down box, you'll notice. And the drop-down box means there's options available underneath that. Some of the key ones I want to point out to you are clicking this drop-down to bring out the columns, but editing the column information. This is where you change those settings, those ones that you initially created. So if you wanted to change something in there, you wanted to add a new description, you wanted to change how it displays to the students, you could do this by editing the column information. Another one that you might need to use is show and hide to users. Now this will show and hide to students my grades. It'll show up still in your grade center, but it won't show up to students. Now, one thing I'd like to note is this must be done before you hide the column from your instructor view. And down at the bottom, you'll see hide column. Now, you don't want to hide the column before you actually hide it to users, because it will still show up for users, but it won't show up in your grade center view. And another thing is, you'll see another area called clear attempts for all users. This is depending on the assignment or test. Now, be aware, once you click that clear attempts to all users and click OK, there is no undo button. They are all gone. They're all cleared. So be sure that you want to do this before you do. And also, notice that there is no delete column. This is only available under those that you've created yourself. So those automatically created in Blackboard can't be deleted in the Grade Center. You must actually go in and delete that related item. So if it's an assignment that you're no longer using in your course, you can't delete the Grade Center column. You need to actually go into the assignment and delete it. Or you could hide the column if you'd like, but remember that if you're having it calculate to the total, you'll need to make sure that's not being used. I'm going to demo now how to enter grades and how you can check your needs grading area and what it kind of looks like. Entering grades is easy, especially for self-created columns. It's much like Excel, entering in a grade, clicking enter, moving on to the next. Also show you some quick comments you can add in there. Needs grading shows all the assignments and tests as I stated before, and we'll kind of see how that looks and how you can sort. And also, don't forget, grades for discussions, blogs, journals, and wikis are done in the actual tool, not done in the Grade Center or in the needs grading area. Now, as I scroll down, I can go into the actual Grade Center, click on this again, and you'll see Needs Grading. When I click on Needs Grading, this will give you the option to do a variety of things. I'll see all the total items that are waiting for me to be graded. Now, you'll notice I only have one that needs to be graded. But if I had more, I could also sort those. Depending on what's in there, it would show different items available. So you could sort by a certain item if you want to grade only, say, all your sample assignments at one time instead of grading other things. I can also sort by users, or I could sort by categories or dates submitted also. And you can click grade all once you sort them, or if you want to just grade everything all together, you can easily click grade all. Now, some of the things I'd like to show you in this real quick is when I click the assignments information, it will show me when it was submitted. Now, for some reason, if this was submitted after the due date, you would see it in red as saying late. This is important because this is where it would show up showing when the date submitted for this. As I scroll down, I'll notice a couple different things. I'll see any submission information that's been posted in there. I'll see the attached files, so if they need to attach a file to the assignment they were submitting. And also I'll see comments, so if a student provided any other comments, you could find them here. You could enter in a grade. You can enter in the user feedback. So this is feedback directly to the user they'll see in their My Grades area. And another great thing is you can also attach files. So if you made corrections to a paper, if you wanted to send them a rubric, if you wanted to send them some other information, you could browse your computer and add something to there. And instructor notes is for your eyes only, so students wouldn't see this. This would be something that you would want just to keep record for yourself. And you could either save as a draft if you need to come back, or you could go ahead and submit this and move on to the next. If I had more on here, I would be able to go submit, save, and go to the next user, and go to the next user, as so on. Now, if I went actually into the Grade Center instead to enter my grades, I could also grade here by clicking down the drop down and grade attempts, or I could click on a single user and grade the attempts there too. Now, if I wanted to enter in a grade, say we had those labs from earlier they did in class, and I just wanted to enter that grade in, I could enter 20 and click enter. That's it, and it'll go on to the next one. Now, if I had more students in lab 1, I could just so on keep adding them. This one went on to lab 2 because I had no more students. So 20 and enter. Go to the next one. It's very simple, very easy to use. Also, if say you needed to add a comment to this, you could click on the drop down for that single item and you'll see quick comments. This area you could add in feedback to users or grading notes for yourself and submit those to students. And they would be able to find this information in their My Grades.
What does their My Grades area look like?
So now we'll kind of show you what My Grades look like for students. This is an example of this course we're currently in, and this is what students will actually see. So a couple key things I'd like to point out would be the due dates. So if any due dates are associated with a column, the students will see those in the My Grades next to those assignments. Another thing is you'll see that green exclamation point, the same as for instructors. When they see that it needs to be graded, that means students also know that their assignment has been submitted and it just needs to be graded by instructor. And at the bottom, you'll see one of those has a 10, the score with it, with an underline underneath, and it hyperlinks to more detailed information, such as full comments, any attached files, and other information that's provided for that one. So, for example, this is a test. It'll show me what feedback for that test. So if I had it show actually the test, the score of the test, what correct answers, any feedback to those answers, this is where they could find that information. And they'll notice some comments on the side. They could be just general comments that are added in there. But like I said before, if they click on that hyperlink for that grade points, it'll show them more detailed information in an easier to read format.
So as a student, I would be able to see the details section, which provides me with an overview of whatever my instructor wrote as a description to that column. I'll be able to see the due dates. I'll be able to see a timestamp of when I submitted work, as well as a timestamp of when my instructor graded or provided feedback on that work. I'll be able to see my score and click into it to see more details, and I'll also be able to compare that to the maximum number of points that I could get on that particular assignment, correct?
That's correct. So your students would have access to all that information that you provided them and also all that feedback you provided them instantaneously upon you submitting it. Looking for more great resources and tutorials? Check out the On-Demand Learning Center.
You can find that as soon as you log into Blackboard by looking in the lower right-hand side of your Home tab, or you can go directly to ondemand.blackboard.com.
And don't forget, there's great resources for your students available on this site too.
Thanks for watching.